Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And this is the first installment of my Sewing 101 series that I'm now starting. Now I realize there's a lot of young people out there that are coming out of high school and they don't have any concept whatsoever on how to even run a sewing machine or to sew by hand if needed, because these kind of skills are no longer being taught in the public school system. And so if you graduated during that time without being taught at least how to run a sewing machine, you might not know the very basics on how to get started. Or maybe it's just been many years since you were taught by whoever, your grandma, your parents, or even, you were still in public school when they were teaching that. But I want to show you just some very basics on at least how to get started, and we'll just continue on through the series. Now I do have quite a few sewing videos out there that are just things like how to make the patchwork skirt or just the basic solid skirt, how to make aprons, how to do some repair work, like how to hem up a pair of pants that have a zipper along the sides. I have a video on that. You can find that. I'll go ahead and link to the whole playlist of sewing videos right up here so you can find those in there. But for now, we're just going to get started on the very basics. Oh yes, and I also have videos on how to run a treadle machine. This isn't going to be about how to use a treadle machine, though I may mention it. But for those of you who are new, this is a treadle machine. It was bought brand new as a treadle machine because yes, they actually do still make brand new ones. And I like the new, though I love the old antique models because they're just beautiful. There's some things missing on them that I really have to have, and that is the zigzag stitch, because I sew pretty much predominantly, especially when it comes to the skirts, using a zigzag stitch because I prefer the hold that it has and the finished look it gives to the hems. But we'll get into that more on some other videos. First, let's start just talking about the basics that you need to know. Okay, so right here, what we have is the bobbin. Now, your machine may have the kind of bobbin placement where the bobbin actually goes in sideways like this, and you have to access it from under the machine, so you'd actually have to lift up the machine and access it from down here. I personally really love the drop-in model like this. I'll go ahead and link to my machine below, but Genome also makes electric machines that have the same way with the bobbin where it drops in from the top, and then you have a clear cover so you can actually see how much thread is in there as you're sewing along. So how do we put the bobbin in? Okay, so if you have the kind of machine where your bobbin loads from the bottom and goes in this way, you're going to need one of these, and your machine should come equipped with it. And how that works is, notice how I'm holding this, okay? You put your bobbin in this way, notice the thread is coming down this way from the top, okay? And then I slide it in that way, and I bring it through and under and over. Boy, it's been a long time since I've used one like this because I've been using my treadle machine for so many years. Okay, and this little screw here is how you tighten or loosen the tension, depending on what you're sewing and how heavy the thread is you're working with, but typically you can use the same amount of tension on the lower bobbin for just about anything you sew. So let me show that again. So the thread is coming down from the top, and the way you're holding it, I like to make sure this is facing me. I snap it in there, take that thread and bring it up through this slot right here and down under this little thing here. I should know the names of all these, that I don't really care, but I've forgotten them over the years. And then you want to make sure it's coming out between these two little prongs, okay? And then when you go to load it into your machine, you just grab this little thing pops out, you hold on to it like that, and then you snap it in place. Now, I wish I could show you exactly how that fits in there for those who have that kind of machine, but I don't have that, so I can't show you. But there is a way you got to line this little thing up when you put it into the machine. But the kind, like say if you haven't bought your machine yet, I say look for one like this. I highly recommend it. You don't have to hassle with that. It's so much quicker and easier to load. You just drop Again, you want to make sure your thread is coming from this side. You drop it in the top, just drop it right down in there, and then you bring the thread back, hook it through, there's a little hook here, and then bring it over here and under this other little kind of a hook, little notch right there. Now I'll show you, I'll zoom in closer and I'll show it to you again. Okay, so I'm holding the thread like this with the thread coming out this way. I just drop it in there, bring it back, hook it through this little notch here, and then back towards the back and let it kind of come up through this little notch right here. I don't know if you can see that little notch right there. Okay, and then before I close this, you'll want to grab hold of the top thread, and I'll get to showing you how you thread the top part of the machine. And you're going to simply use your wheel to let the needle come down and grab hold of that thread and pull that up and pull it through, just like that. Okay, so let me show how that's done again. I probably should have shown you how to thread the top part first, but we're starting with the bobbin for whatever reason. Okay, so I put that in, snap it in place, hook, hook. Okay, I have the thread for the needle. The top thread is what we call this, right up here. I take my wheel, because whether you have a treadle machine or not, you'll still have this wheel that you'll need to turn. And you just turn that until the needle goes down and back up. Just one time, and that'll be enough for it to grab the thread from the bobbin, and you just pull some tension on that until you can get a hold of that loop that's pulled up from the bobbin. Okay? And then I take both threads and push them back there, and then I shut the little door. Okay, because you want to make sure this is shut while you're sewing, or your fabric's going to get all hung up in there. Okay, so now let's move on to how to thread the machine. Now, the first thing I want to show you is that most of your newer machines now will have a little diagram actually right on the machine that shows you how to thread it. Like this one is for how, when you get down to this point, and then up here at the top it shows you how to thread it through this. And then of course you'll also have your book. Your book should explain it pretty good if your machine is new. But maybe you have an old machine that was given to you and the owner lost the book, and this may be helpful for you to figure out how to thread your own machine. Now don't mind all these separate little pegs here. You'll see several. These were actually attachments that I had Mr. Rain put on for me so that I could be winding up a bobbin while I'm sewing. This one over here is the one the machine came with. It was actually curved over. I even had him cut that off so that I can go more frugal by buying these bigger things of thread like this that didn't fit on there with that curved portion that came with this. So I'll get to how I wind the bobbin later, but typically this is where the thread would come from for the top thread. But since this is where I put the thread for winding the bobbin, I put the top thread on this one here. It really doesn't matter, these ones that Patrick added on here for me. It doesn't really matter, it all works just fine. So each machine is going to be a little bit different in the way you thread it, but there are some things that stay pretty much the same. The newer the machine, usually the less is involved. We have one machine, a Good Housekeeping, that is, when you get to this section here, you'll see this, the thread will actually slide through from back here, but on the old machine you actually have to thread it through a hole here. Now they do this so that usually there's the only threading you have to actually do is in the needle. So I start by hooking this right here. There's a little hook right here on this metal piece, okay? And so I just hook it in there. It's not really a hook, it's just more of a little divot than anything else. And now I'm going to bring that thread straight down through here and around this strip here. Again, this is very, very common how you'll see it. Sometimes you'll even have a little wire that sticks out here, and that will need to hook around the wire, because that wire that sticks out is where you adjust the tension for the upper, but on here the wire is actually on the inside, so if I ever need to really adjust it and change it, I have to take it apart and get in there, but it's rare that needs to happen. But anyway, I come up again and go and just hook it right onto that. And as I said before, this could have just a hole through it if it's an older machine. It may even stick out on the front. I've had a machine where this thing here was out here and then you threaded it through. Then again, I bring it straight down. So I've got this whole S thing going on here. And then when I get down to here, I hook it behind this piece here and then hook it again behind here. And then you thread your needle from front to back. I'm not going to do that right now. I'll do that in a bit. Now you may be, I know the Genome, at least an electric one I've seen, has the needle threader, which is you get to be at my age is actually really nice to have because it's a little drop down thing. You bring it down, it sticks a little wire loop through the needle hole. It's lined up perfect. Then you put your thread through that and you simply pull up and back and it will pull the thread through and then you just finish pulling it. If you have that, that's a pretty handy feature, especially if you're older like me, but I just keep my reading glasses handy and thread it by hand. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this all out. I'm going to show you how quickly, once you get the hang of it, you can thread your machine. Just like that. And then, of course, threading the needle on top of that. Okay, now I'm going to do it a little bit slower from a different angle. So, hooking it onto here, okay, and down through this slot here, and then down around. Sorry, I'm not doing too good holding the camera and doing this at the same time. Come back up, hooking it through here, and then back down again through that same slot, okay, because you go up through this slot, hook it around here, and then back down through that same slot, and then hooking it around this little guy here, and then there's one more little wire right there, okay. I find it helpful if the thread is a little bit frayed like that. Good sharp scissors, and I cut it just at an angle that will give it more of a point. Okay, and then again going from front of the needle to the back. That's really important. Okay, and then grab that end and pull it through, and make sure it doesn't do this. If it's like that, I don't know if you can see what it's doing there. Simply pull the thread down and get it so that it's going straight. Sometimes it just kind of loops underneath and catches that way. You just got to unloop it or unhook it, and then make sure it's going straight from this wire down, going straight back through the front of the needle. You don't want it wrapped around like it was. Before you start sewing, it's got to come down and through the presser foot. That's what this part is here. This is your presser foot. And then you're going to put your fabric, whatever you're sewing, is going to go on under that presser foot. And then there's a little lever up in here. You drop that presser foot down, and then you start sewing. And I recommend trying taking just a random piece of cloth and trying your zigzag or your straight stitch and go slowly to start with. All right, now one more thing I think I should go over with in this video is winding your bobbin, which is super easy. But before you can start sewing, you do have to have that bobbin thread. You can't just sew on a machine with just the top thread. You have to have both. So you can see here I have a bobbin all wound up, and again, this is my own little special setup I got going on here that Mr. Rain made for me. So let me grab an empty bobbin here, okay, and you snap it onto this little thing. Now this little lever, this little thing that the bobbin goes on, goes back and forth. You want it forward this way. You want it to the left before you put your bobbin on there, okay? Then you push it back. All right, then you go over here to your wheel and you're going to loosen it there's a center wheel here, and you're going to hold on to the outside wheel, take the center wheel and turn it towards you, and it'll be very loose. Okay, so you can see what that looks like. So this way is tight, And that means when I'm running my, running the machine, this whole wheel is going to turn. When I'm winding the bobbin, see, I want to hold this bigger wheel and turn this one to the left to loosen it. And what that's going to do is that's going to keep the needle from going up and down while I'm winding the bobbin itself. Okay, so now what you need to do is you take your thread and you're going to wrap it around this peg right here. Again, you may have a diagram right on the top like I do that shows you this stuff, or if you have a book. I think it's great that they're putting it directly on the machine though, in case because books get lost or can get lost. Okay, now you take your thread over here, wrap it. I usually wrap it a couple of times around the bobbin itself. And because I'm working with a treadle machine, I have to put a spin on my wheel before I start pedaling. But if it's electric, just use your pedal. It might be a foot pedal, it might be a knee pedal that's on the inside of your cabinet. And you just get it spinning and hold that thread. Sometimes it won't catch right away, so you might have to just do that. And then you just keep going. And there's a little stop right here that when the thread gets full, it'll hit this stop and it will stop moving, and then you'll know it's as full as it should be. And you can adjust this if you need to, like maybe they have it adjusted in too far and it doesn't let the bobbin get very full, or maybe it's out too far and it lets it get too full so you can't fit it into your bobbin casing. You can just unscrew this, loosen it up a bit, adjust this where you want it to go, and then tighten it back down again, and then you'll see this will come to a stop. There it goes, see? It stops. And it's all done. And then you want to tighten your wheel back up because now your needle will be able to move. So you'll notice that whole time that the bobbin was winding, my needle stayed stationary because I loosened this up back here. So that's how you wind your bobbin. And it may take a little practice getting that, holding that on there. Now, the reason we have this set up like this is what I do is typically I'll get the bobbin started winding, and then I'll tighten the wheel back up, and then I'll sew with the thread coming off of here, and I'm saving time. And I can be working on my skirts, putting the skirts together while the bobbin thread is winding up, and it saves me a lot of time. So Mr. Rain actually has a video on how he did that, put at least one or both of these pegs on here. And sometimes this third peg I just use as a place to store another thing of thread that if I know I want a different color ready to go for something else. Okay, well there you have it. There's the first installment on my How to Sew or Sewing 101 series. And I will be linking to the machine, my favorite thread that I like to use, my favorite set of scissors, all that kind of stuff down below if you want to look for it, seam rippers and all that kind of stuff. And if you're looking at purchasing the machine, especially if you're looking at going with an off-grid setup, I highly recommend the Genome if you don't already have an antique one to use. I love this machine. It's been the longest lasting machine I have ever owned. And I have sewn everything from denim quilts to, as you know, the patchwork skirts and purses and all kinds of stuff, curtains and so on, using this machine, even costumes. Because I got this back before I retired from doing the dance shows and was still making a lot of costumes with sequins that can be so hard on machines. And anyway, it's really great. So if you have any more questions about what you saw me do here, go ahead and put those in comments below and I'll try to make sure to answer them. And also if you have any ideas of what you would specifically like to see in my Sewing 101 series, that will help give me an idea of what to focus on in my next videos. Okay, well I hope you enjoyed this video and that you learned something new. Thanks for watching, take care, and God bless.